Next up we have Arabian Magic, a game I'd never even heard of before I played it. This is being played on Taito Legends 2 for the PS2, making this the first game I've covered that appeared in one of my recent collecting videos. Set in the world of the Arabian Nights, the kingdom of Shahryar has been cursed by the evil one, Barantes, or Balantes, the game spells it differently at times, and its king transformed into a monkey. Our 4 playable characters have to collect the jewels of 7 colours to undo the curse and turn the king back. So we have 4 playable characters, and I'll cover each one after every 2 stages. First is Prince Rashid. Round 1 starts us out in a forest close to a castle. I start by picking up a magic lamp from this chest and fighting the swordsmen that attack me. It's a classic beat 'em up but with weapons. Rashid is the basic all-rounder with no huge drawbacks. He's fast, he isn't too weak, perfect to start the game with. As the drawbridge into the castle lowers, I get to see Rashid's walk cycle with his weapon away. That is the most confident walk cycle I have ever seen in any game. After taking out more swordsmen, I can enter the castle. Like many beat 'em up, there's also stuff to destroy for treasure that just gets me points. There's also one item I can grab that wipes out all enemies on screen. My next wave of enemies adds a new type, shorter guys who dual wield knives, also being able to throw them. After them, it's spears coming out of the walls when I fail to dodge. After this, I meet the round 1 boss, Mumu Kinsella. He's a massive dude who dual wields swords. At this point I use up my magic meter to summon the genie from the lamp. He hangs around me and swats a fist wherever I attack, and his breath will send even bosses flying around the screen. This leaves the boss nearly dead. One trick he has is that he can throw these flashing bags to the ground to spawn more swordsmen, but by that point it's too late and he's dead. He leaves behind a chest containing the first jewel, and that's round 1 complete. The game then fades right into round 2, the music keeps playing and everything as we're still in the same castle. Here I start by avoiding spikes rising from the ground. In my next wave of enemies I get a power up that increases my attack range by firing lightning from my sword slashes. The next room has rotating spinning blades to avoid and then has me fighting on a narrow bridge. Killing these has me enter another room. Killing the few enemies in here triggers the round 2 boss battle against Asura. 6 arms all holding swords that can act on their own. He can also jump on me to damage me and gets backed up by the knife wielders. He kills me once but is otherwise quite an easy boss. I cut his arms off and he offers to join us, to which we welcome him and call him inside the magic lamp. Round 2 is cleared and we have the second jewel. The group discover the king is a monkey who tells them about the jewels, so I guess getting the first 2 happened completely by accident. Round 3 will see me swap to my playthrough as Princess Lisa. We start by hopping onto this magic carpet that then takes off. Lisa can't take damage as well as Rashid, but makes up for it with special abilities, a strong spinning attack, and her regular attack with her shroud will fire off projectiles. That extra range made her my favourite character to play as. I get attacked by other magic carpet pilers, but they all get knocked off in a single hit. This doesn't last even half a minute before the round 3 boss, the Great Rock, shows up. First we see its huge challenge try to crush me. The first phase is simple, just beat up its feet. One leg breaks off and then the next. After that we take on the head while smaller birds try to swamp me and the rock fires off its own giant feathers at me. It will also charge me with its head, but this is still easy and goes down quick. I grab the third jewel, but then a sandstorm shows up, forcing a landing. Round 3 complete. Round 4 has me in the desert surrounded by ruins, dodging boulders then fighting soldiers fall from the sand on the ground. Once I kill them, it's 2 very acrobatic fat guys charging around, doing flips and attacking me with a spiked club. Last level, Asura entered the lamp, so now I have a random chance of calling him instead of the genie to fight with me. He'll use the exact same sword attacks he had as a boss to finish off the mini-bosses. This lets me enter the next screen. Here I have to avoid quicksand with antlions in the middle, while fighting off a large group of swordsmen. Once I kill them all, I can enter the ruins. My first set of enemies here is a group of wizards that have snakes lunge out of their robes. That's their main form of attack. They'll also try to swap me with their staff, but they prefer throwing snakes. Moving on, I fight a skeleton and have spears drop from the ceiling on me. As I move on, the next wave has a new swordsman type, that doesn't do anything remarkable to my knowledge, it's just a new sprite instead of a palette swap. Once I kill these, the floor raises to the top to meet the round 4 boss, Kanjiji. This game came out a year after Street Fighter 2, so I believe the developers at Taito saw Dhalsim and decided they wanted to adapt him into a beat-em-up boss, as he has Dhalsim's stretchy limbs. Except his arms, instead of going rubbery like Dhalsim's, have like a billion joints and it looks very off-putting. Kanjiji will change the background environment for this fight and call in the sand soldiers to take me on. He'll also just try crushing me. Thanks to saving the lamp for this fight, I take him out quite fast. Apparently he was being controlled by Versailles and joins us as well. We welcome him too and he enters the lamp, giving us the 4th jewel. The group arrive at the city of Dira where some random peddler offers them an apple. They don't trust this guy with his green hand, but eat the apples anyway, which shrinks them. So round 5 has us tiny and walking around this market. For this stage I'll show my Sinbad playthrough. He's slower than the first two characters, but can charge up his slashes to make them stronger. I enjoyed playing as everyone in this game, but I think Sinbad was just barely my least favourite of the bunch. A new enemy here are these women whose special ability is to either just disappear or teleport off screen only to walk back on, I'm not really sure. The second wave of enemies just has one of the fat guys as a mini-boss. Once I defeat that wave, a magic pot drops down and sucks me inside, where there's an entirely new world. Mostly the same enemies though. I get to summon Kanjiji from the lamp here, and I don't enjoy getting him as much as the genie or Asura. His wavy arms look like they have a lot of range, but I find he actually hits enemies less often than the other two. Killing two waves of enemies has the pot drop down again and take me to another new realm. On this screen, the floor is slippery as if frozen. Along with this are many gaps in the floor I have to jump over. This does give me a way to kill enemies quicker, not that it matters because the enemies in this game actually aren't damage sponges and die in a reasonable amount of hits. 2 or 3 waves of enemies and the pot drops again, this time taking me to a world underwater where there are more skeletons and boulders dropping from the sky. It's just one wave of skeletons and killing them all drops the pot again. This takes me to a woman who calls in the round 5 boss, Doppelganger. I have to face discoloured versions of all 4 playable characters. The best way to do this is to just run up to them and get throwing them all over. Once one of them is defeated, they'll drop a lamp and I have to collect all 4 to defeat the boss. This one is probably the easiest boss in the game. The woman appears once again and says she will change us back to normal, where we ask where Balantes is, using the other spelling. The doppelgangers get sucked into the lamp and round 5 is complete, getting us the 5th jewel. That was a long one. The witch returns the group to their normal size and tells them they can stow away on a smuggler's ship that travels to the secret island of the demon. And so round 6 starts me off inside the ship. The first wave of enemies includes guys with tridents who can either throw them or charge with them. Once I take them all out, I break through the door and keep walking, avoiding the lanterns dropping from the ceiling that eventually set the room alight. As I reach the end of the room, I get attacked by 2 buff dudes who like to pull off flying kicks. I also summon the doppelgangers here. Not much to say about them, it's just like having 4 extra players on screen for a bit. They're probably the most effective against mini-bosses like these, since you can easily stunlock them to death. Going through this door puts me up on the deck. I fight a few trident guys along with the big guy who retreats off screen before I can hit him. I reach the big guy, who I assume is the main smuggler, also backed up by skeletons wielding axes and shields. He doesn't get to do much because first he gets genied, then I beat the last of his health out of him. Behind him is a hole with tentacles coming out. Dropping down it has me face the round 6 boss, King Kraken. Each of his tentacles has their own hitbox and break off individually after taking enough damage. While this goes on, the Kraken will also spit ink at me, but since I started the fight bringing out Asura, he doesn't get to hurt me much. Once Asura is gone, this becomes a bit more of a pain, constantly getting knocked on my ass by both tentacles and ink. But then I get to summon Kanjiji, who takes out the rest of his health. After breaking off the Kraken's tentacles, it turns out he's being held against his will. In exchange for saving him, he'll guide us to the island. He gives me the 6th jewel and that's round 6 complete. The ship sinks, the magic carpet is damaged and lost, and the prince and him followers are saved by the Kraken, who takes them to the island for the final stage. The final level, round 7, is a long one. He starts me on this bridge beating up piranha plants. For this level I'll be showing off my Afshal playthrough. Afshal is strong with his Morning Star, and he can take more damage than anyone else. He also has a rolling attack. He's actually faster than Sinbad, or at least he feels like it. Eventually I reach the end of the screen and enter this door into a cave. I go through a few waves of returning enemies until I exit the screen and enter a castle. I make my way up the stairs, taking out some of the largest enemy waves so far. After 2 waves I enter the next screen, featuring the return of the spinning blades. You think you can stick to the top of the screen and avoid most of them, but you'll find fire-breathing statues waiting for you at the end. I don't have to kill them once I pass them, but I do so anyway for payback. At the end I get the Fat Club mini-boss and the buff fly-kicking mini-boss at the same time. The buff guy goes down quick, but the fat one clings on for a while, endlessly charging through me before I finally bring him down. The next room is just a long wave of both skeleton types before I move on to a more colourful room. I get more returning enemies and then the round 1 boss returns as a mini-boss. Despite being demoted, he's a lot more aggressive than he was back then, calling in scorpions instead of swordsmen. I had to just summon the doppelgangers and stunlock him to death. Defeating him leads to the final room. Here I can finally take on Barantes and pay him back for leaving me not knowing which spelling of his name is supposed to be correct. He starts off just shuffling about with a sword, shoulder charging me and shooting fire out of his hands. You will die a lot in this fight. His first phase isn't too hard though and I take out his elf. But then he calls in a unicorn dragon that starts off by jumping on me. He'll follow it up by breathing fire and then jumping across the screen again. I knock out a huge chunk of his health with the genie, to which he responds by leaving the screen and then flying through me, sometimes flying by and breathing fire, sometimes breathing fire while hovering out of attack range. But I eventually take out that last bit of health and kill it, leaving Barantes alone again. His next trick is to split into 4. He'll position himself so that he can set the entire screen on fire at once. At this point they'll all just do nothing but spam fire. The best thing to do is just hope you have a summon ready to make yourself invincible and hit all 4 of him at once. Eventually, Barantes leaves behind the chest containing the final jewel, and I've beaten the game. His castle crumbles and the magic carpet returns to help me escape. The group return to the king's castle and use the jewels to return him to his true form. Either that monkey was massive, or the king is tiny. We are told that in Shahryar, the king and his followers restored the peace and everyone lived happily ever after, the end. Arabian Magic is one of the better beat-em-ups I've played for this show so far. It's just as fun and satisfying as other arcade beat-em-ups I've played so far, but it cuts down on a lot of the bullshit. Enemies and bosses are less damage spongy, and the usual arcade money making tricks to kill you aren't as present. The combat is fun and satisfying enough on its own, but then you add in these huge summons and it gets even better. I don't like this more than Streets of Rage, but I may actually prefer it over even Final Fight. I honestly have no idea why I've never heard of this game before. It's one of the most pleasant surprises I've had from playing a game for the first time on this show in a while.